from here, from Prescott, to Mexico. And then I want to just raise support, like mile by mile, get sponsors and see what we can do. And so that's what he did. He got his friends together, and he did like this crowdfunding thing. And they got on their bikes, and they just started one day and went to Mexico, ended up Mexico over our spring break. And when they got down there, they raised a ton of money, like $10,000. And then when they were down there, go ahead, next slide. When they were down there, so this is them like rolling into Mexico right here. When they were down there, they gave those bikes away. The first thing they did is gave their bikes away to people who needed bikes. And then they went into this orphanage, and they did like this extreme home makeover, dude. They like made everything new. They had like a new TV room, and they just bought them whatever these guys wanted. It was like a brand new kitchen, all this sick stuff. And next slide. And I watched these guys who started off doing silly things, just trying to figure out if they could be somebody, if they could just fit in somewhere, if they could just make a name for themselves. I watched them push those things aside and start chasing after the things that God had for them that were deeper. And when they did that, man, they found a story that was so beautiful, that was so unique, that when they were giving that money away and they were watching those kids, the joy in those kids' faces and the people who were serving those kids, I watched these guys who now are like 22 years old, 23 years, I watched them literally just weep, just like break down and weep with gratitude. And when Nick finished that trip, I pull him aside and I gave him a little hug and I said, hey, dude, you're a legend. You're a legend. You're the right kind of legend. And so tonight, man, if I could, I want to just tell you 2 stories to help us get to the spot that God wants us to be. You can go to the next slide. So this right here, Nick's strongest desire, the phone story, is to be recognized, praised, respected, to be a legend. His deepest desires, what he found in Mexico, was to help, heal, give, serve, redeem. Man, it's a way better story. It is a way, way better story. Let me just tell you about the last time I almost got in a physical fight, okay, which I'm not proud of. It was like 2 years ago. And I was inside of my house, maybe like 3 years ago. I was inside my house. I live over here in Prescott Valley. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and my daughter, Elle, who's like Macy's age-ish, I think. And is she Macy? She's like your age, right? Or a little older? Anyway, so they grew up together. She was out. She was actually dating the guy that she's now married to. And you know how parents are, man. They get worried about their kids. And so I was like, man, where's Elle? What's going on? So I'm checking my phone, and I was just getting ready to call her, and all of a sudden she calls me. She just pops up. And so I answered the phone. I was glad she called. And as soon as I hear her voice, like my spidey sense goes like straight through the roof, like the level 15 automatically, because she's whispering. She's like, Dad. And I'm like, what? She goes, I'm out in the driveway. I'm like, okay, why are you whispering? And she goes, there's 2 dudes out here banging on the window of my car, and I can't get out. And I was like, what? And from that moment when she said that until I was outside, I don't even remember how I got there. I just like morphed outside. Okay, I went through walls and things happened. Like I just dropped my phone and I was outside and I bust out the front door, and sure enough, there she is in her little Toyota Yaris, and there's these 2 grown men at like 1 o'clock in the morning on both sides of her car yelling for her to get out of her car and banging on her window. It's not like a normal thing that happens to me all the time. And so I just went outside, and when I saw those guys, and I saw her in there she's kind of like huddling down in her car, and I saw her face and she was scared, I just went, hey! I just like screamed, dude. I like lost my mind. And I started walking towards those dudes, and when they heard my voice and they saw me walk towards them, they started backing up. Not because I'm like some kind of fighter, because I was screaming at them, man. And as they started backing up, I'm just like yelling at them, like, what do you think? All the dad things, right? They're backing up. I have a son named Rye who at that time was in college, and he heard the commotion. He was inside brushing his teeth, and he walks out in the front yard just kind of like brushing his teeth, looking around because I'm screaming at these 2 dudes. And he's like, Dad, relax, dude. He like literally told me to relax. I'm like, right, these guys, whatever. And these guys, they were 2 dudes that were drunk. They had just seen El Pol in the driveway. They were walking by. I don't know what they wanted exactly. I'm not sure if they knew what they wanted. And after I yelled at them for a few minutes, and they were backing up and trying to explain themselves while they were high, I figured out that they were okay, and they started to walk away. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The thing that moved me from the inside of the house to the outside of the house wasn't that I'm like a fighter or that I'm like brave, because I'm not a fighter and I'm not brave. The thing that moved me from the inside of the house to the outside of the house without me even knowing that I got there, I'm not even sure how it happened, and that was getting ready to move me into an actual fight with two strangers, is a thing called conviction. You guys know what conviction is? Go to this next slide right here. Okay, conviction is like this strong persuasion or belief. Go to this last one. It's a belief in which we are thoroughly convinced. And it's this thing that when you believe so much, you're convinced. And that conviction moves you to action. And I had this conviction inside of me that my daughter has to be okay. And as soon as something gets in the way of that thing, as soon as something like there's a conflict with that thing, my conviction, I'm convinced, it just makes me go places. Even if I shouldn't go there, even if I'm going to get beat up, it brings me to that place. Man, conviction is important. It's really important. You guys know the story of David and Goliath in the Bible? Anybody? So, like, raise your hand right now if you guys know that story. Okay, sweet. So you know that story. It's a guy that was like your age, a dude that was like your age, a guy that was overlooked and undervalued. When they were trying to figure out who was the next king, they brought out all of his brothers, right? All the dudes that were taller, all the guys that had the look, all the guys that had the stature, the guys that the quarterback of the team, all those dudes, they brought out all those guys and never looked for him. And God said, "What? Hey, I don't see the way you guys see. I look at the inside, not the outside." He was overlooked and undervalued. Kids at school didn't notice him. Nobody noticed this dude. And he found himself somehow from that place to the edge of a battlefield where, again, he was overlooked and undervalued. His brothers, his older brothers, were like, "Hey, man, what are you doing here?" They had disdain for him for even showing up. And we know the story that Goliath is the enemy's across the field, and he's taunting these dudes. He's like the ultimate bully, right? He's like, "Bring out your best dude." And it was 40 days of no one answering the call, 40 days of like epic bullying. And then a dude like your age, who's overlooked and undervalued, shows up, and he's like, "What's this? Who is this dude who's defying our God?" And David had this conviction that was like, "Hey, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that." And something moved him that didn't move anybody else, all the other bigger dudes. Something moved him and made him literally walk around and grab some stones and put them in his pocket and take his sling and literally start walking. Like there was a first step across the field towards a big guy. There was a first step. I'm going this direction. And he walks across that field, and we know how that story goes, right? Like, go to this next slide right here. Next slide. This is the part right here that I love. After they had their little back and forth, their little banter, when Goliath's telling him that he sucks, and he's saying, "No, you suck," and then, "Hey, I'm going to kill you." And then it says he ran quickly. Like when he didn't like, if you've ever been in a fight before, dude, like if you're not sure, you hesitate. There's a lot of like, if you like fights in school, there's a lot of like standing around, right? We're moving back and forth. We're trying to figure out. But when you have conviction, like you just go from point A to point B, you just morph there. And that's what he did right here. Because he had conviction, he ran quickly toward the battle. This is why this is important to you. This is why it's important to you. When you guys come to this place and you're asking questions about the heart and soul, about the things that are going on inside of you, the things that you really believe in, okay, what you value. Go to this next slide right here. What you value, okay, what you value is what you believe in. And so with those dudes, when they're looking over David earlier, and they saw all the tall guys, all the big guys, all the guys that had the look, all the guys that had like the perfect Instagram account, and they're like, "It's got to be this guy, No, it was a dude that nobody knew. What David had going for him is he had the right value, meaning he valued the right things. He knew he wasn't the biggest dude. He knew he wasn't the most talented dude. But he had this thing in his heart that said, hey, I believe in the God who made me, and I'm going to give all I have for him. And God saw that in him. And what you value, you trust. So he valued not all the things, he valued God, and then he trusted in God. And in that trust, he believed so much that he was convinced. And then that conviction gave him the courage to contend, to fight. The right value goes to the right trust. The right trust brings you to the right conviction, and the conviction brings you to the right fight. That's important. You know why that's important? Because a whole bunch of people are in the wrong fights. Like a whole bunch of people. A ton of college students and adults that are ahead of you are spending their life in the wrong battles, in the wrong fights. And why that matters is because it's writing the wrong story with their lives. You're living a story. And your story, that thing inside of you that says it's supposed to be special is right, dude. You're supposed to be living a story that is worthwhile. That feeling you have is correct. And if you're in the wrong battles, if you're in the wrong fights, it leads you to the wrong story. God has a story for you that is ridiculously cool, that is significant, but it begins with the right trust, conviction, and fight. So here's what I've seen. I'm almost done, so you guys can relax. I'm almost done. What I've seen is there's a bunch of people who have conviction. They value, they trust, they're convinced, and then they fight. But what they're convinced of are things that are ridiculous, like iPhone throws, okay? What they're convinced of, the kind of battles they fight, these fierce battles are about cash and about comfort and about career and about recognition and about status and like all the things that we know, right? And they fight their entire lives. And here's what I want you to know, man. If I could do anything to you guys right now, if I had the power to do anything, I'd give you this shot, all right? Or I'd just wave my hand, even cooler than that, and let you see clearly the things that matter most. If I could just do anything, I'd just say, you can just see clearly all the things that matter most. So when you walk through school and you walk through life and you're making decisions and choices, you're not confused, you're not getting derailed by things that are ridiculous. Instead, what you're doing is, hey man, that's the thing right there. That's where I should be right now. Because most of us are struggling with trusting in the wrong things and then fighting for the wrong things. And it writes stories that are just less, that are just lame. And you know that because you've been in that spot. You know that because you've seen people you know and you love in that spot. And what adults ahead of you know is that sometimes we spend our whole lives and we fight like fiercely, dude, because we're convinced. And then eventually we win the fight. We win the fight. We got the career, we got the cash, we got the comfort, we got all the stuff, we got recognition and power and all the things that everybody said we're supposed to have. And we're on top and we're like pumping our fists like I'm number one. And we just realize that, hey, dude, but the problem is I know that I'm still me. And then inside of me, like in the deepest parts of me, there are giants roaming the halls of my heart, and they're tearing the whole thing down. Like they're tearing the whole thing down. I got the job, I got the girl, I got the guy, I got the house, I got the car, I got the clothes, I got all the stuff, but man, on the inside, I'm wrecked. And some of us live in spots where we know that like all too well because it's like our family. It's like our brother or our sister. It's like our uncle. It's our neighbor that we've seen in that spot. Like they have all the things that people are jealous of them, but we know them well, and we know that their lives are literally unraveling at the seams because there are giants inside of them that have not been faced, because they're still pinned down in their little Yaris, waiting to get out. There's nothing to get, they're pinned down, or they're on the sidelines when the giants across the field, and they will not leave that sideline, man. They will not go out there. So I just have this really, really simple challenge for you guys tonight. Simple but difficult, and that is there any way that you guys could be men and women of conviction? That you could value the right things and begin to believe and trust in the right things, the things that God has called us to and invited us to. Those deepest desires. Those things that really, really matter. Go to this next slide right here. Go to the next slide. I just made a list really quickly. These are the things that I see in students who are just ahead of you. These are the giants that I see that are just absolutely tearing them limb from limb. Anxiety and fear, jealousy and envy, insecurity, pride, greed, lust, anger, rage, shame. I sit down with people who are 18 to 25 all the time, and after they get to know me and they trust me enough, this is what we talk about right here. We talk about that. And they're trying to figure out how to get past one of those things. And that giant is calling them out, and it's taunting them and saying, man, I own you. And they're trying to figure out how to do it like on their own strength, and they just can't do it. They just can't figure it out. And so here's what I want to encourage you guys with. Here's what I want to challenge you with. I'm not sure how this goes for you, because I want to invite the worship team back. I want to finish with just a little bit of worship and prayer if we could. But I want you guys to just be honest with yourself. I want you to look inside of your heart, and I want you to ask yourself, man, what are the things that I struggle to confront? Like, what's the giant that I have inside of me that's just rattling the cage and just tearing me limb from limb? The thing that I don't tell anybody, like nobody knows about. Like, just nobody knows. Maybe one person knows. And I do my best to not look it in the eye. I do my best to ignore it if I can. I'm just telling you, it's not going to go away. It's just going to get bigger and stronger. It's going to keep screaming your name. And you can work really hard at beating all the outside giants and pursuing your strongest desires. But unless you win this battle right here, nothing else matters, man. Everything is about your heart and your soul. That's why that's all that God asks for. All he asks for is the inside of you. All he cares about is the inside of you, because the inside always leaks to the outside, right? And so here's what I want to do. I want to pray for you guys, and then I'm just going to release you guys. I have a few minutes to process and think about this. And man, if there's any way, I don't know you guys, but listen, you're men and women. You are not little kids, okay? You are men and women, and you are capable right now of spending a few minutes and looking a giant in your heart in the eye and saying, God, would you go with me into this battle? Because David said this. He said, hey, the battle is the Lord's. When he ran across that field, he didn't say, it's all about me. It's all about my sling and my strength. No, he said, the battle is the Lord's. I'm going across this field towards this giant, and I'm doing it because I know that God is with me. I'm going to pray for you guys. We're going to face some giants. God, I'm just so grateful that what you invite us into, what you want us to do, is not just figure out how to look good, not just figure out how to get likes or be recognized, not figure out how to be popular or accepted, not figure out how to make sure that our neighbors and our friends are jealous of us. But God, that what you care about are the battles that really matter, the battles that lead us to our deepest desires, the dreams that we have, that thing inside of us, Father, that said there has to be something more. And so, Lord, I pray like really simply tonight, Father, that you would help us just spend a few minutes actually examining our hearts. Lord, the things inside of us that are pulling at us, that are pushing us, that are challenging us, that just don't belong there. God, greed and pride and lust and so there's all the stuff. Father, I pray that we would not be those people who just sit on the sidelines and watch that giant walk back and forth day in and day out, always challenging, but never having enough conviction, never believing in you enough to say, hey, this battle is yours and I'll go with you, God, across this field. God, I pray that these men and women right here would be those who believe in you enough, God, who trust you enough to walk towards those things, those challenges that we have, and saying, God, I give this to you. And Lord, I pray that those kind of right battles would lead to the kind of stories that these men and women long to live. Lord, I pray that you would bless them with the kind of lives that they were designed and meant to live. Let it be so. We just ask these things in your name. Amen. Okay, I want you guys just to worship and pray about those things.